Hi, it's Jason from drpremed.com, and I want to talk to you guys about post-bac programs and improving your credentials to get into medical school. And the reason I'm bringing this up is I was actually working with one of my year-long pre-med advising students who's going to be applying to medical school, and also he wants to kind of hedge his bet, so he also wants to do a master's program during his year off while he's applying because he's currently a senior in college right now. And so he made a list of potential post-bac programs that he was interested in applying to. I said, let me take a look at your list. Let's kind of figure out what are your goals, what are your objectives, and what do you really want to get out of a post-bac program. And in his case, he really needs to improve his GPA because he had some problems he had some problems in undergrad with his GPA, but he had extremely high MCAT score. So there's a little bit of a disconnect there with the MCAT score versus the GPA. And I told him with his MCAT score, he's definitely going to get into medical school somewhere. And so that's really not going to be an issue. It's just going to kind of be, what do ADCOMs think of that lower GPA? For some students, it's just that you haven't mastered how to study. You just haven't done the right things that you need to do, and that's why your GPA is affected. Other students, they have personal issues going on in their lives that affects their ability to concentrate and do their schoolwork. And then you have another group of students who are just kind of just lazy and don't really care too much about their academics at the moment. And they're the ones who usually come to me around their junior or senior year telling me how they messed up, they were lazy, they were new to college, they didn't know what they wanted to do with their life, and now they want to go to medical school, and they want to tell me that their GPA and grades aren't a reflection of their abilities and what they could bring to medicine, and they just need one chance. So I hear that. AdComs hear that all the time, but unfortunately, with 60% of pre-med students getting rejected the first time that they apply, that's just not going to get you in the door because there's way too many qualified applicants for medical school than seats that are available. And so I want to just go over some of the things that you guys need to be doing in regards to preparing for special master's programs. And for starters, these are going to be the type of programs that you want to do if you've taken most or all of your pre-med courses. And you want to do ones that are targeted towards professional school, so like medical school, dental school, or something like that. You don't want to take a general master's program. And what I see happening is sometimes students will take, oh, I want to take a master's in public health. Do not do that if you're trying to improve your GPA for medical school, because that doesn't show medical school that you have the ability to handle a rigorous curriculum such as medical school. So you want to take those special master programs that are really focused on pre-med students who want to get into medical school, and most likely what you're going to be doing, you're going to be taking some of the first or all the first year medical school classes, and that way when you do apply, medical schools will be like, okay, so and so had these type of grades in a medical school type environment, I feel confident with them, and let's move forward and get them an interview invite for our medical school. And also when you do these special master programs, if you have a bad GPA, this is called grad school coursework. So on your application to medical school, this is entirely separate GPA than what you would see with your undergrad GPA. So if your undergrad GPA is kind of in a toilet, it's extremely hard to improve that. And so you can take all these other courses and you see that your GPA barely moved. But if you do a grad school, you get an entirely fresh and new set of GPA and grades to put down. That's going to be entirely separate. So if you do well in that, you get like a 3.5 or better, then you're going to have smooth sailing moving forward because it's newer grades, it's more rigorous coursework, and it doesn't factor into what you did in undergrad, so it's going to be a stronger GPA too that AdComs see when they're going through their application. So those are just some of the tips that you want to know about post-bac programs. I know some students, they look for ones that have linkages to medical schools. That's good. Just make sure before you enroll or apply to those type of programs, you get a full understanding of what's required for matriculation into that medical school, because I've worked with some students who've told me, I went to so-and-so post-bac master's program. They had a linkage program. At the beginning they said the students do XYZ, then will be automatically guaranteed this or that, and then they were saying like how there's issues with that process, and it just seemed like the administration kind of turned things in a different direction, or not as many students who were supposedly meeting these credentials and criteria actually were able to move on to the next step. But however, I say you want to take that with a grain of salt, because that's one person's perspective on things, and we're not actually there, so we don't know what's going on. But just be aware of those things when you are applying to programs. And here's a huge caveat that I think you need to be aware of when you're applying to these special master's programs. And this is what I told the applicant I was working with on yesterday. I told him he had a list about, I think, 15 post-bac programs that he wanted to apply to. I said, you don't need to apply to that many. You only need to apply to about 5 or 7, and you'll be good. And then I also told him you have to be very strategic about where you apply to programs, because what happens is these programs are called cash cows for schools. I asked him, you know what a cash cow is? He said no. I told him, well, it's just a saying that means it brings in a lot of money for the medical school or whoever's offering a special master's program. Most of them are affiliated with medical schools, because you think about it, you're going to be taking some of the first year medical school classes, so they already have the faculty in place, they already have the facilities, and so all they need to do is have that professor stay around for an extra 1 or 2 hours to teach another class, and you guys are paying $50,000 in tuition for that. And so you can see how that adds up really fast to make a lot of extra money for schools. So that's why you see a lot of schools are adding special master programs, because they realize 60% of students who apply to medical school aren't getting in, and these students want to be doctors. They're going to do anything possible to make that a reality. So if they can go to a grad school program, do extra courses, and kind of improve their credentials for medical school, they're going to do it. And for the medical schools or the programs that are offering these programs, they're looking at the bottom line. They're thinking, wow, this is an easy way to increase our revenue and bring in additional money for our school. Now, I'm not saying that they're out to cheat you or anything like that. It's just you have to think from a different perspective of how the world works, and not just for the student perspective, like, I want to get into medical school, I want to be a doctor, I'm going to do whatever it takes to make that happen. So that's what I tell the students when I advise them on everything too. I'm like, I'll give you the student perspective, because that's what you're focused on, but I'll also give you like the academic perspective, the medical school's perspective, and an AdCom perspective, because those are things that a lot of students don't consider. They don't factor it into when they're going through the application process of how to get into medical school. But when you have that knowledge and advice coming from me, that's how I move students up to the top, and they're very successful in getting into their programs they want to do. So just be aware of that when it comes to the special master's program. You want to have one that has a history and has a very strong track record. So ask them about, okay, what's your placement of students in a medical school or graduate school or professional school, because that's usually the goal. So that's a good question to ask, and just any other question that you would have that would be a concern, because you want to know what's going on. Because a lot of medical schools, they're really going to focus on the students who come out of the historical SMPs that have been around for a while, because they say, we know the caliber of applicants that come out of these programs. We're already familiar with them. We know what they can do. And that's kind of the same thing with medical schools are looking at students who apply to their programs. They know what caliber of a Harvard pre-med is compared to somebody at North Dakota State School. There's a difference, and if the school knows about a particular institution, then they're going to be very comfortable accepting students from that institution. So just be aware of that. I want you to know that, so we can't worry about it for undergrad, because you're already in place with that. But for your grad school, your special master's program, that is definitely something to be aware about and be concerned with when you're applying, to ensure that you're giving yourself your best chance of getting in. And you want to apply early in the process of post-bac programs. You don't want to wait around to do so, because what happens is if you wait to the end of spring, you have all the people who got rejected from medical school going, oh shoot, what am I going to do? I need to do something with my life and my career, and they're going to start applying to a special master's program so that they can reapply to medical school, and you don't want to be competing with them right now, so you want to get in early before they even start thinking about it. And so that's some tips and advice for you to get started with that. that. And if you have more questions about post-bac programs, I'm going to actually link you to one of my post-bac guidebooks that has a breakdown of all the programs and a lot of insider tips and advice that you're going to need if you're in the process of applying to post-bac special master programs. People read that book, they say it's great, it's a quick read, and there's a lot of detailed information that's going to really help you move forward in your career so that you can ultimately get in medical school and become a doctor.